So anybody have any open questions, guys? Okay, so I think we're good. So I noted yesterday one of the question regarding that timeout. So anybody, you guys try why it is coming, how we address all that one. Hey Krishna.
Sorry. I'm sorry. Come in.
Yeah. So did you try that one? Look up timeout issue.
The yesterday example, right?
Correct.
Yeah, I tried that actually.
So actually, whatever the syntax we put it, so there is one more optional field actually. We ignore that optional fields. What you can do is just open your lookup POC, and then the default timeout is so 2000 milliseconds, guys. It's around 2 seconds actually. What you can do is so wherever the transformation is there, so we have one more optional parameter actually. You can increase the timeout. How much you want to keep it, you can increase. So increase it and write if you are still facing issue, and then verify it. Let me just verify it. Hope you guys are clear. So this is an optional field, guys. So we did not keep that optional field actually. We can extend that one. So that three fields, three parameters you have to pass it. One is for subflow, another one is for the payload, whatever the payload expected by your subflow, right? Which is nothing but this. And the other one is, hopefully you can see my screen. So this is the subflow, and this is the payload. And so here you can put it up how much time you want to keep it, the based on your complexity of your subflow, right? So that much you can keep it actually. Let me try to reproduce that scenario, same scenario what we done yesterday. You can also try it, guys, parallelly. Just put that the timeout. By default, if you're not keep it, it will treat it as a 2000 milliseconds. It's around 2 seconds. So what is the third parameter, guys? It's a timeout milliseconds. It's a timeout milliseconds. You can keep it. Okay. I am putting debugger here. But make sure whatever the logic you perform, right? Within 2-3 seconds, it should come back, guys. Otherwise, there is a performance issue. Overall, your flow should take less than 2-3 seconds, right? If it will take this itself, it will take 2 seconds, right? So obviously your API is running with the performance. So why for me it's coming, I'm running in a debug mode actually, right? Step by step I'm showing, that's the reason it is taking more time. It's throwing back in the timeout actually, but eventually when it's running in a normal mode, it will quickly get executed actually within 2 seconds. Okay, so make sure if you have certain SLA, right? So if you have a within 3 seconds or within 2 seconds, your API should perform. So we have to think about this actually when you are working with this lookup. Okay, I got a request, you can see. Let's see the step by step. I did not see. Yesterday you can see clearly when you're working with this one with the default the milliseconds, right? We can see time out, right? But I did not see. Are we good?
Okay, thank you. And also, right here in the transform message, some error is showing, right? Actually, why that error is coming? Even I can see if you see one issue found something, right?
Yeah, you can ignore it actually. If you see it's showing like syntax itself, right? We can ignore it. It's kind of the compilation issue actually sometimes in the transformation, right? So it's automatically will gone. But when you have to consider this kind of thing, your deployment is failing, so then you have to take care to work on it actually. But until unless it's not a showstopper for us. Sometimes, it's a the transformation is not properly compiled, so it will show like that actually. If you see it's saying like a percentile DW output, here it is showing an error, right? Syntax itself.
No, it's showing actually
Now we can see payload.
that map some T array, something like it showing. Can you just click on that?
Yes, you can ignore that one actually. It's not a showstopper. It's a compilation issue sometimes. Okay. Now we can see near payload. I can see that one, right? When I'm refreshing and deploy it, I can't see that one. Right. We'll go down this. Any other questions, guys? Yeah, for the lookup thing. Any other questions? I'm just putting in bracket, guys. Don't put it in bracket while sending. Okay. So whenever you're passing in entire mule, whatever the component it is, if you're keeping this timeout milliseconds or milliseconds, so it will consider as a always milliseconds, guys, until unless if you say that the measurement. Okay. So that is about the questions. So hope you're good. Let's go back to the error handling part, guys. We discussed yesterday, theoretically we discussed yesterday how the error handling perform in the MuleSoft, and the outside how it is performed on the part of the Java. Similar way in MuleSoft as well. It will consider as how the Java is performed. Same thing, guys. Here as well, there is no difference. But you are not writing any logic internally. It will perform accordingly how the Java is doing. Okay. So whatever you've done till now, either it's a SFDC, the migration, right? Or else SFDC integration or a DB integration, what we did, right? You can apply that the error handling part, guys. Okay. So let's try apply on that on error continue, right? And then so let's see one by one the component here. So there is on error continue, you can see, right? So let's drag and drop the on error continue where you are working with the DB integration or file reading elsewhere, right? You can just put it, and then based on your condition, based on your error type, it should route to that one, and then accordingly you have to implement certain logic. Actually, for example, the user want only even the error occurred, user want only the JSON format. You can prepare it and send it back. Okay, so let's try this POC. So after that, you can just put into in your DB or in your the Salesforce or where you are trying to read the file, right? Everywhere you can just put it and verify it. Okay. So here you can see the couple of things I put it here. The scenario is here. We are already done this POC earlier. So the reading the CSV file, right? So in the previous POC also we done. So when you're trying to read the CSV file, right? So it is expecting a certain path, right? So if you're not passing a proper path, so obviously based on that the path, right? So we'll get some kind of the illegal path if the path is not, that particular file is not available. So it will say illegal path, right? So what I did, so instead I also shown you how to drag and drop that one. So here usually you can drag and drop it, right? Error handling in the bottom you can see. But in this particular POC, I introduced this the try black as well as per the discussion yesterday, right? We can see that one try followed by multiple cache blocks. It depends in your API, right? In your API, there might be the several issues, right? It might be arithmetic exception, it might be array index out of bound exception, it might be string index out of bound exception, right? So, but we don't know until unless we run the entire example, entire POC, right? So once you got to know, you'll just keep it actually accordingly multiple catch block. So one is for arithmetic exception handling, another one is for array index out of exception handling. Like that, you can keep it. Or else, if you don't want, we just put it a single exception, right? So here actually, in this case also, you can see when you try to drag and drop that the error handling on error continue, right? So here you can see that the possible error type of your component actually, right? So what is our component here? What is our message processor here? Which is nothing but a reader, the file reader. You can see in the drop down, right? Just click this one, the search. These are for possible the error types when you use that the file reader, right? So here you can see the file access denied, which is possible. Then connectivity issue, then illegal path. There is a file log, somebody parallelly using that, or else somewhere else it is utilizing. So it might be the file get locked, right? So the next one is retry exhaust, the expression issue, syntax issue, and then stream maximum size exceed. So these are all possible the error types, right? So when you're using this file reader. Okay, so I know here I just want to show that illegal path, the file illegal path, so that from the drop down or from the search, I just choose that only file illegal path. We'll see when this will occur, right? So if you don't know what kind of it is, as I said, right, here we'll keep it an exception, right? Super class will keep it. But whereas in MuleSoft, what will keep it, guys? It's nothing but any, right? If you don't want to handle specific one, just keep it any, right? Here you can see any. So instead of that, if you know specific one, just put that one, file illegal path. Okay. So once we get inside, so this obviously our flow, something gone wrong in your flow. So the based on the error type, it will jump into appropriate the catch block. That's what here, right? Appropriate catch block it will go, which is nothing but a class name. So here as well, based on that error type, it will go to the appropriate error type. Okay, so for example, your file gets some access denied, right? You don't have the read and write permissions or modify permissions or full control on the file, right? Then it will go to the file access denied. Okay, so what I'm trying to do is when I'm trying to get an illegal path, so obviously it should come here. So here I just put a sample the transformation. So put hard coded one, actually your path is invalid, right? So then it will jump into the logger from there. So it will just convert into the JSON and then it will display it, right? So let's try to deploy it. We'll see step by step what's happening in this particular POC. So there is a, we already done, guys, this kind of POC. Same thing I'm trying to do it. So debug it. Okay, let's get deployed. So this POC expecting some the manual intervention, right? We have to hit the request. Let's see. I'm just taking that. So the path and the port. So it's 8082. Let's pass that. We'll see the positive scenario first. Just putting 8082. So this is the path actually. The file path equal input.csv. So we are trying to read that file path and we are parsing. Here you can see the query parameter file.path, guys, file path. Okay. So we're trying to pass that to the file path where it is available, that particular file, right? So we don't have any issue, right? We are passing the right path. You can see that the data is trying to read it, right? Whatever that available in the CSV content, we are trying to read it, and then we are crossing to the next level. What we are trying to do is, observe here, we're getting a CSV, we are converting into the JSON. So here is the output. Let's try to pass intentionally some wrong input. I'm just putting like input extra T, I put it. See, I'm just requesting. Okay, I got a request now. Let's click next step. I got an error. You can see clearly highlight that particular component. Observe the error type, guys, illegal path, right? You can see that entire object, whatever you want to read that from error object, you can see it here. So error description, you can read it, error detail description, you can read it, right? So based on your request, whatever the parameter you want, from the error description or from the error, you can just put it accordingly. Just put detail expression, you can see detail description. So does not exist, that particular file does not exist in that particular path, right? So here you can see the file name is wrong. So what is our intention is we have to read that error type, right? Error. So this is the main thing actually, right? So whenever you are seeing that the error, right, you have to concentrate on this particular the error type actually. So we have to take this error type and then you have to put into component here, your choice condition here, which is nothing but choice, right? So where should it should go actually? So the based on the error type, right? Wherever the error type is matching, either it's access denied, either it's illegal path, it should jump. Anything gone wrong in this flow, accordingly it should go to that appropriate error type, guys, right? You can see it here. So that get match. So in Java also same thing, right? So wherever the class name it get match, arithmetic exception or some other, right? So it will get match and it will go to the appropriate block. So same thing here. So what you're trying to do it here. So inside we are making some logic again, right? It will get executed, right? And then you can see. So if you guys understand what we discussed earlier, even though I'm getting an exception, right? Even though I'm getting an exception, I can see I'm not stopping the user here. I'm not stopping, I'm not breaking that one. So it's smoothly, it's going to the next level, right? You can see the output. We are clearly saying, boss, it's an illegal path. Your path is invalid. We're not stopping this transaction. We're not breaking that the transaction. We're not giving that information. What is the original error here? We're not showing that one. Illegal path, right? So whatever that error type you're getting, we are customizing, right? What you are getting, because end user doesn't understand if you share that one. For example, if you show that illegal path, if you go and look into that console, just check the console. Here you can see the entire error is coming here, right? So this is all technical actually. We are trying to customize it. We are showing back your path is invalid, meaningful and human readable message we are preparing and send back to our consumer. So that think like this end user perspective. Sometimes, the front end might be used instead of our consumer, right? The end user might use it. I think like this, the front end guy, here is the client. I'm just putting PHP system, right? They'll try to hit the MuleSoft. Unfortunately, the whatever that the illegal path or else whatever that so DB credentials, etc. Right? If you show that entire the login, the stack trace, whatever that entire you can see it here. If you show the entire thing, so you may not understand, right? So he might sometimes end user might log in. Whatever consumer do, whatever you are showing, whatever you are sending error message, he might populate into the pop-up actually, or as a dialog box you are the putting. Whatever you send back from the MuleSoft, you might show on the dialog box. If you send that this kind of a technical message, right, may not understand the end user, right? The pop-up he may not understand. So whatever that you have to take care to read this entire stack trace, what is the original thing, the technical message. So you have to convert into the meaningful, which is understand by our end user. Then you have to make it, and then you have to send back it. So that's the thing we are doing here, part of the error handling, right? So that too, the terms and agreements actually, even though the consumers say or clients say, so irrespective of whatever it is, either success you are getting or failure you are getting, send me always JSON. Okay. So accordingly, you have to prepare it. Even the error occurred, you have to take it to convert into that error, and we have to send it back. Okay. So if you guys remember, so statement 1 and statement 2, I just put some sample, and then I was talking about try black, right? So observe here, even though I get in some issue, some exception here, I move forward to the next level, right? So instead of breaking the transaction, completely executing, I'm sharing that information. Okay. So when this occur, guys, when this will go, access denied. If you remove the permissions, right, this particular file, whatever the file, you can try it actually, that particular thing. If I, this is the, my file is kept into the inside SRC main resources. If you remove certain permissions, actually, you can try that one. Right click on the file, on the properties, security tab. Here you can see that if you can try to change some permissions, but by default read and write is there on this. If you remove that permissions, obviously we'll get some access denied, and then it will jump into this particular, actually instead of this one it will go here actually. Okay, so one more thing you have to observe, there is a try block here, right? Try block here. Can we try to remove it and try it? Try block. We can't, right? So here actually the try block is a placeholder here, right? Try block is a placeholder. Inside try block we are just putting actually. So if you guys observe, there are different ways you can achieve this error handling, meaning I just put it only specific component, right? I'm not putting entire flow. So if you see here, think like this, something gone wrong in the JSON file, right? You did not handle it here, right? It's not come under try block. It's come under error handling in the bottom. It's a global level. So what I'm trying to highlight here. So earlier in 3.x, we don't have this feature actually, right? So meaning always you can handle entire flow actually. There is no specific component you can handle it. But now we have a feature, which is nothing but a try block here. I just handle only, I know that where the error occurred. That's what I highlight in the theoretical as well, right? If you know where the error occurred, right? I know where the arithmetic exception, where I'm suspecting statement 2, right? So then you don't need to put entire thing in the inside try block, right? So you just take out this one. You just put it only statement 2. So here is same thing I'm trying to do it. Only that particular component I'm putting. I'm not handling entire thing. If you want to do that, the global level, which is nothing but a flow level actually. This is a component level. So this is nothing but a flow level. If you yesterday we put that one right in the DP connection, I just put a flow level actually. You can just put it here flow level, and then global level. right? Global level, we'll see there is error handler is there, we'll put that one. So we can keep only component level, you can keep it here if you want to handle only that particular component. So this is nothing but a component level error handling. So then you can see the try black. So without try black, we can't keep this two. Where you have to keep these two, guys, if there is no error handling, we have to keep it here. Okay. Hope you guys are clear. So can we try on in your side, wherever you done that, the reading the file and then writing into the Salesforce. So recently we done the POC, right? Can we try to work on that one? Just put into the first, you can keep it into here actually, error handling. Then come back to the try black actually, right? Let me try to show you this. So I'm just showing the backend side. I'm just putting that comment here, try black. And
Yes, right. How to remove that try black only specifically? You just put already inside, right? How to remove that?
can I see? Yeah, I just commented out actually from my from my configuration example.
Oh, that's the only.
No, we can still remove it actually. You can just drag it just for again, I need that one, right? So that's why I just put it a comment. So wherever you identify the try black, right? So line number 64, and then where it is, from starting here, you can see the line number 20. I just put a comment. Observe here, guys, whenever I just put a comment, it jump into the error handling, right? It's instead of the component level, it's jump into the flow level. Okay, hope you guys are observed. Let's try now. Hope you guys started parallelly. So whatever we done that Salesforce and then along with this particular CSV reading we done, right? Just apply that. Use that, you know how to drag and drop it, right? So in the bottom, you can see error handling. The first drag and drop the down error continue. Right, so we have a two components, right? One is for the file reader, and another one is for Salesforce. There is a possibility to occur the error or exception, the both the components, right? You can just drag and drop it. One is for illegal path, another one is for the invalid credentials. Okay, just drag and drop it. You can identify it actually possible error types. Just choose it accordingly. Okay, I can see some invalid metadata, right? No child element is expected. You guys carry on with that, guys. I'm just correcting actually. Somewhere else, some child element is not. Child element is the problem actually. Transformation. Okay, so let's drag and drop that one. So what you have to do is take that on and continue. Observe here, guys. I'm in a debug mode. Actually, I can't see that palette. Okay. You can just see that multiple tabs are there, or else you can just go to this the design view. There are different the perspectives what we discussed earlier. Just change that accordingly. Just drag and drop that on and continue here. Inside that, I'm just putting transformation here. Okay. I'm just putting this message. Your path is invalid. Hope you guys are working on your POC. I'm just converting into the JSON this one. Okay. So here on it continue. What you have to choose it? Illegal path. I just choose that illegal path. Okay. This is one thing. Other one also I'm just drag and drop it. On it continue. So here I'm just putting some, let's see, access denied. Just putting transformation. You can use even the payload as well, guys. Whatever the component you want to use it. It is nothing but a flow again inside. So I'll just put it. Access denied. Okay. So the next see, I have a one more component convert to JSON. Whatever you are giving, right? The next step it is converting to the JSON. Let's see, guys. It will go there or not, first of all, right? So I'm done this. Let's deploy it again. It's already deployed. It seems started. Let me stop it and start again. So we'll try to observe without try block and with the try block, what is the difference? So please work on it parallelly. Okay. Application get deployed. So let me try to hit the request now. Let's hit invalid path only. I'm just passing invalid path. I got a request. I got an error. So where it will jump? It will jump to the flow level handling. Right. I got a request here. You can see. Next, I put a debugger here. Okay. Add a deep breakpoint to the next level. Convert to JSON. Let's see. Where is the cursor, guys? It didn't come here, right? It didn't come here. So if you see the difference, the previously now, right? So even though exception occurred, you complete that next level of things as well. But now what is happening? It will finish here itself. It's not come back to your original flow. That's the difference actually. If we keep it a try black, right? Even though exception occurred, the next level of execution, whatever the next level of execution, right? It will smoothly get executed actually without any break, right? But whereas in here, so I'm not using the try black actually, right? I'm not handling that exception what you're getting. I'm just putting that the error type. I'm just whatever the information once you read it, I'm trying to display back. Yeah, go ahead please if you have any question. Your voice is not clear actually if you're asking a question. Who is speaking? Hey Ram. Hey Ram, I mute you actually. Do you have any question? Can you just unmute it and okay. Okay. Yeah, please go ahead. Please go ahead and ask if you have any question. Okay, I think that's unfortunate. Okay, so you might unfortunately unmute that mic. Okay. So is it clear, right? So are we good with the try black and then on it continue the difference? So two things we verified it, guys. The component level we verified it, and the next one is the flow level we verified it. There is a global level is the, we'll see that one. Okay. So before going to that, so I'm trying to introduce the part of the error handling itself. I'm trying to introduce that the queuing mechanism, guys, the asynchronous process. Okay. So let's try to work on this one. So for that, what needs to be done? You have to install the software called Apache ActiveMQ. One second, let me just capture that software. You can search for the Apache ActiveMQ. Okay. Can you try to download this one? So download ActiveMQ software. So why we are discussing only ActiveMQ here? So this is an open source in the market, guys. You can try with this one. So if you are familiar with this, any one of the queuing mechanism, right? Either it's ActiveMQ or RabbitMQ. So these two are the open sources in the market. Actually, you can try to play with around, right? So it's not installable actually. It's the zip content actually. Just download it. Apache ActiveMQ. I'm just keeping in the chart. Try to download this one. Once you download this one, just click here. It will get download Apache ActiveMQ. The latest version is 5.16. Okay. So once get downloaded, so what you have to do is just unzip it. Okay, just unzip it. You can see that content, whatever there in the content here. Okay. So how to start this server? This is nothing but a server, right? So what we are trying to do is we're trying to interact that one. Whatever the failures happen, I just want to push into the ActiveMQ. Just now we try to display it, right? We're just giving back to the consumer AWS. So this is an issue, but we frame it properly in the JSON format. We customized it and send it back. So instead of that, the client may expect, irrespective of whatever the issue it is, you might expect send a notification. You might expect send some kind of the queuing mechanism, right? So here is target is we are trying to send that. So whatever that the error occurred, right? We'll try to the multiple times. We'll try to put some kind of a retry mechanism and post that success to the JMS actually. Here for the ActiveMQ. So we are using an ActiveMQ as a server, but coming to the MuleSoft, from the Mule side, the component, client component is nothing but a JMS. The by default it will available guys JMS. So here is the JMS operations. You can see there is a consumer, listener, publish, right? Pub and consume, right? So what we are trying to do is the first setup that the ActiveMQ, the backend, right? In your machine, in your local machine. Once you are ready with that, and then we'll try to post that message, right? So we'll see success scenario and failure scenario both. So once you unzip that one, so use that 7-zip software. So once get downloaded successfully, so it will be look like this, guys. You can here you can see with the zip you can see any point. Sorry, Apache ActiveMQ 5.16.2 bin zip you can see. Just unzip it. You can see. So there is a bin content you can see. So here bin folder you can see. Okay, open that bin folder. Before that, observe here, guys. ActiveMQ all 5.16.2. So if you remember, when you're trying to interact with any other third-party system, we need the dependency, right? So like how we done with this guy. So the database, right? Similarly here as well. So we need to show that right, this particular ActiveMQ all jar files, right? It contains all jar files, ActiveMQ all jar files. Or else individually you have to download it, put it all the dependencies when you're trying to interact with the ActiveMQ via JMS component, right? Let's open that bin. So here you can see that Windows 32 and Win64. Obviously nowadays everybody using the Win64. Just open this one. So here you can see the batch file. So click that batch file, guys. So what I'm trying to show that how to start the server, the ActiveMQ server, right? So we are set up that one into our local machine. But eventually this particular ActiveMQ available in the remote machine, right? Remote somewhere else actually, and that too handled by some other admin guy, server admin guy that might handle it actually. So that time what needs to be done? So they will share entire required broker information, that whatever the broker URL and all, they will share us, so that accordingly we have to interact it, right? You don't need to worry about that, how to start this, how to shut down this, all these things. But our job is we have to add that queue topic and then ingest the data is ingested or not. We have to get the credentials from him. We try to log into the GUI and then we have to look into it. right? But we should aware about these things. That's the reason I'm trying to highlight here. So it's anyway, it's open source. We can play with around. I just started, guys. You can see that HTTP, it's running on this port, HTTP 127.0.0.1.8167, right? We are familiar with that 127.0.0.1, which is nothing but a local host, right? My server is up and running, guys, in that particular the port, which is nothing but 8167, right? I'm just opening that one. Apache ActiveMQ, so which is running in my local machine, right? So once you logged in, so maybe for you, it will ask the username and password, guys. For me, it's not asking because I already logged in, right? So admin, guys, we can use that one and then we try to log in by default. Or else this information provided by the server admin, as I said, some other POC on the ActiveMQ, they might work on it. So you will get that the credentials or the login credentials from him, right? The programmatical user, they will create it and then they will share us. So I'm just clicking that manage ActiveMQ broker. Click that the manage ActiveMQ broker. You can see here, so there is a queues, topics and subscribers, connections, networks, many things you can see it here. Our focus is on only these two things, guys, queues and topics. Okay, if you want to learn about that entire server, so you can see it here, documentation, guys. Click here, apache.org. It's a self-explanatory, guys. You can just go through that and read it, entire documentation. But here, whatever the things required, we'll just look into it. Queue is required and the topic is required, right? We'll try to interact with the queues and we'll try to interact with the topic. Okay. So what is the expectation, guys? So whenever the message is available in the queue, immediately your MuleSoft should get it and then process it, right? So that way we'll work on it actually. So that means we have to subscribe your ActiveMQ via MuleSoft, so that whenever the message is available in the ActiveMQ, so that should get it out and then process into your MuleSoft. Okay, we'll see how to subscribe it. So here is the queue and topic. What is the difference actually? So at a high level, the difference between queue and topic. So queue is for a single consumer, right? One consumer at a time, right? Whereas in top case, multiple consumers, the bulk of consumers. For example, YouTube video, right? When somebody posts that YouTube video, so anybody can watch it, one to many kind of thing, right? But whereas in queue, it's one to one, right? So once posted that the queue, right? So that particular consumer pulled out it might delete that one after that, right? We have to clear the queue actually. Our intention is, so whenever the messages are available, we have to pull out it. So we always try to make it empty, that particular server, right? That's what the intention, right? So here you see, we don't know from where we are getting this message. Even MuleSoft also posted the message here, and then MuleSoft publish and consumer. Both way MuleSoft can behave it, but eventually in a real-time world, if you see the messages, right, there are several ways the message will come and dump into that the queuing mechanism. For example, if you take a network system, right, for example, we'll go for a Airtel system, Airtel network, right? So we can raise a ticket multiple ways, right? I can just use that SMS and then I can raise a ticket. I can just call them on the customer care and then I can raise a ticket, right? I can get some email ID and I can raise a ticket via email ID, right? Sometimes I observe when you're trying to chart, right? When you're trying to do the chart, automatically chart will take it to create a ticket, right? That feature also there nowadays. So like that, if you see, there are several ways to raise a ticket actually, to raise the case, right? So all the tickets will dump into the active, whatever the queue mechanism they are maintaining, it will dump into here. So based on the priority, one by one get resolved, right? So they might have segregation as well, financial queries, some other network related, some other related, right? SMS related. They might segregation as well, but eventually all the messages, all the the tickets get dumped into this particular queue, right? And then so what we have to do is, so whenever the queue get a message, we have to pull it out and we have to process it actually one by one, right? First in, first out, the concept, right? Queue, we have to process it. Okay, so that way the queuing mechanism will work on it, guys. It's kind of a asynchronous manner, right? Even though sometimes we discuss some use cases, if you are getting a bulk order creation, right? Yesterday we saw that account creation, right? Right. So we try to ingest the two, three records, more than one record. We try to interact with a Salesforce we ingested. So think like this: the Salesforce guy or Salesforce. Um, the marketing guy, so they might they went for campaign, he get a more contacts, more accounts, more contacts, he get it. He'll prepare some CSV sheet which contains a more than 10,000 accounts or 10,000 contacts he prepared it. When I try to read 10,000 contacts, obviously it will take some time, right? So we can't get immediately response coming from the Salesforce, right? As I said, right? So there is a certain limitation as well from the Salesforce side. So for that also what you can do is, so we can introduce the queuing mechanism in between. So there is no restriction in the MuleSoft, right? So we can just take that the 10,000 contacts and simply we can put into the one by one as a message. You can just put into the queuing mechanism, right? And then we can just pull it out one by one, and then we can process it, right? So, and then one more thing, guys, each and every queuing mechanism, there is a storage limitation as well, right? If you go for ActiveMQ and RabbitMQ, I think it's an MB, less than 1 MB, you can store it. But if beyond that one, for example, my message size is more than 1 GB, then what you can do is, guys, this particular ActiveMQ or RabbitMQ, so internally they maintain some database as well actually. Okay, so you might learn these kind of the concept inside the documentation. So they might the maintain the database, they put into the database actually if you're sending a the beyond that limitation, or else you simply go for S3 bucket, right? Amazon S3 bucket, there is no limitation, right? If you go for the S3 bucket, right? So even Amazon also we have SQS SNS concepts. Okay, you can just store that like what we are doing here at MQ, we can store it. So what I was trying to highlight is beyond that message, every queuing mechanism has a some own limitations. So the based on that your input, right? You choose that accordingly. What is a suitable queuing mechanism, right? So or else simply you can use the S3 bucket actually. So if you want to store the more memory, more message, right? We can go for S3 bucket, and then from the S3 bucket we can push it and we can pull out actually. Okay, that way also we can achieve it. So coming back to this one, the queue and topic. So hope you guys understand. So let's see how to create a queue here, right? I just want to create a queue and then put into the message here manually. So as I said, this right, this particular guy get that messages, get the tickets, or whatever that the messages for this ActiveMQ. There are several vendors might be thrown to this particular, or send it to, or publish into this particular ActiveMQ, guys. But I just want to create a manually and test it. How to create a manually? So here you can see that queue. You can just put simply whatever the queue name you want. Just type here and then click create button. It's very it's everything is a GUI based, guys. You can easily understand. So here is my queue, test queue or in queue or out queue. I'm just put that some message in inside my the queuing mechanism. So here you can see that, right? Just click that send to, right? So here you can see that send a message. So here you can see the different properties you can see. I'm just putting like instead of this one, welcome to, or else just copy paste that whatever that the response you are populating. Just now you're populating JSON, right? Okay, just take this and then put it here. So your path is invalid, right? So you can just click the send button. So now you can see message enqueued. The previously it's a 0, right? Now, so ready to deliver, ready to read that message. Actually, you can say the message enqueued. So whenever your server is up and running, it will pull out actually, because we have a listener, we have a JMS listener, right? The job is whenever the message is available, it's keep on pulling actually. Whenever the message is available, it's pulled out as early as possible. We can clear the queue, right? So that's the reason we have the multiple consumers as well within a component. We can just define that number of consumers as well, right? Okay. So what you can do is just try to set up that entire that ActiveMQ and try to play with around, and then create a queues, create a topics, and then put that manual message, right? Let's try to see in the next session how to interact with this via Mule, and then how to clear these queues, how to post it as well. So we'll see both options, how to listen that one, how to publish that one. Okay, so something on error handling, right? We have a retry mechanism as well. So between that the ActiveMQ and MuleSoft, for example, you're trying to post it or you're trying to read it, right? Something on ROG in between, right? So if you see in the previously when I'm trying to click the send purge, here you can see that options actually persistent options and all, right? So this guy can control it actually until unless you are giving acknowledgement back to this guy. We should not display that. We should not delete that message, right? Because you are trying to read it, you are not successfully sent to your target system, right? So you should not delete it, right? Because in between your flow get wrong, your flow get failure, you're not reach your destination, right? So still message should be available, right? Otherwise we lost the message, right? That way this guy, based on the acknowledgement, he can delete it either. So they want to delete it or they don't want to delete it. So that way you have to take the decision and the work with the MuleSoft guys. Okay. So let's see the next session, how to post it, how to failure message post it, how to apply the retry mechanism. So where the number of consumers you have to pass it, all these things we'll discuss, guys. So that's all for today. Anybody have any questions, guys?
Error handling part, right? Do we have any more questions actually, or are we done with that?
Sorry, not clear, Krishna.
No, the error handling part, are we done with that, or do we have any more sessions?
No. Still, we are discussing part of the error handling only. This one as well. Okay. We are introducing on error propagate next. We're done with the try black. We're done with the on error continue. We are discussing with the part of this one only, the JMS mechanism only. We are introducing on error propagate, how the on error propagate will perform. We are working with this. The next session, along with this discussion, we have a some kind of different flows as well, guys. How the behavior in the subflow and private flow, how the behavior in the error handling, something gone wrong in the main flow, right? You are calling the subflow as well. So what is the behavior in the subflow? So we'll see. The more the POCs are there, and then I'm trying to introduce that the exam questions as well, the Mule 4.x questions as well. So some critical things, right? Some kind of a confusion in the error handling part. I'll try to show you that you can answer that one. Okay, once you are familiar with this error handling. Okay. Hope you're good.
Let's say actually normally what happens is we'll just define all our error handling mechanism, something like, let's say when there is error activity to log to some table or log to file or something, it just globally for that project that we are going to define, right? And that's how actually say we are going to call that as a normally, if there are any other workflows kind of thing or business process, actually we are just going to call as I said here in this case we are called a subflow or something, right? Private, whatever it may be. Similarly, we are going to call that error handling part wherever you are define this kind of business logic. So how to make sure that we are going to define that error logic entire for this project actually, and we are going to call that actually irrespective of it. Actually. We don't need to define for each and every flow, exactly. Right? We can define that. So how to do that actually?
Correct. So the best practices should follow actually. Individually, you should not define like this. Okay. So if you guys remember in an earlier session, we are trying to introduce a global config.xml or else global config.xml. We introduce it, and then whatever that properties, whatever that configuration, right, we push to that global config, right? In stuff everywhere, in stuff individual flow we maintain, all the configuration we should maintain to the global config. Similar way here as well, we are going to keep one more configuration file called global exception handling. Okay, we have to create a global exception handling, global error handling. Everywhere we should not define individually like this. Okay, we just put a flow reference here. It will jump into your error handling part where you define that globally. It will go there, and then there we put it the different flows actually. So it will go there and it will execute it actually. So if you see here in this case, if you are keeping multiple things, it's look like a it's look like a complex or clumsy actually, right? You can see we should not keep it here actually as per the best practices. We should define that outside there is a global error handling as a separate configuration XML. We just put it here simply the flow reference. Using that flow reference, it will go there and it will take the decision which flow get executed. So there we have to handle it actually. Okay.
So appreciate you're going to cover that, right?
Yes.
And one more thing, let's say we are getting a bulk normally, even if it is a pure, soap or whatever it may be. So we're going to get a bunch of records, maybe more than one at least, right, in a given point of time. In that case, actually, let's say suppose we are processing each and every record using for loop kind of a thing, then it's okay. Then probably whatever area use case you showed us, right, and try component level try cache. So if the record is getting error out for any specific reason, it can be a required field missing or something, whatever it may be. So then, okay, then we can move on to the next record. We can just ignore that record and we can process log for something else. We can send it back. Then we say issue with this record. Like that, actually, we're going to process all the n-1 records, and then we are going to send actually whatever the records which are failed, and with success and the error responses for each record. That's what we can do. But in case of bulk, right, bulk inserts or bulk of whatever it may, bulk operations. So my requirement something like irrespective of whether it's a success or failure, whenever we're getting bulk messages, right, none of the records should not fail, because if one record is having issues, we cannot ignore the other records. We cannot roll back the complete thing. So we have to go with all the other records as well. So in case of bulk insert, how can we do that actually?
Yeah, so the part of the MuleSoft, so the default, the analytics also there actually, how many records get failed, how many records get processed. So that we are going to cover into the batch job, guys. That's a very important use case. So here you can see that we have a batch job. Okay. The part of the batch job, we have an options, even though one file get one record get failure, you can go move forward to the next level. And eventually, without writing any code, the batch job will take care to give the analytics as well. So these many records are loaded. These are the failure records. These are the success records. Yes, we're going to cover that the part of the batch job, this use case. Okay. Are we good? Hello, guys, can you hear me?
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, thank you. We'll cover that use case, Krishna. Sure. So thanks for joining. That's all for today, guys. So we'll connect on.